This is long overdue. Very, very long overdue. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Cody Truitt on the podcast for the first time of many times. I'm very confident it's going to be many times that this is going to end up happening. I won't go into too much because we do want to talk kind of your story. Maybe a little bit of how we ended up getting connected, who you are, what your kind of focus is, what you do. I know you got your hands and stuff in a lot of different pots and different places, different ministry type focuses, and a lot of those with you and I are kind of interconnected. But I do know you have some of your own stuff too you're working on. So I'll go ahead. We'll just throw it to you. We'll go into this first one, and you just kind of give us an overview who you are. Maybe your story a little bit, what ended up bringing you to God, and how you're looking to help reach others.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. So I guess the best way, especially for people that listen to your show, the way that we interconnect, most people probably know me through Of Sound Mind. And that's on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all the stuff, right? And, to tell you how Of Sound Mind got started, I kind of have to go into my story a little bit, just for some context. And growing up, so I'll just go right into when I was growing up, we went to church, and my story in that case is probably pretty similar to a lot of people's story. We went to church, and we were heavily involved in, like, my mom, she started a small group at school because she's a teacher. She was a middle school teacher, and she started something called Jesus Freaks. And right, yeah. And so that was a big deal, especially back then. That was back in the early 2000s. There wasn't a lot of like Christian groups. I know there's a Fellowship of Christian Students and stuff now. It's pretty big in most schools. I think almost every school has one. But that wasn't common back then. And so it was kind of taboo for a lot of parents, for the kids that were in it. She dealt with a lot of pushback from the school and parents and sometimes students with that group. But I always thought that was pretty cool that she did that. And she was pretty bold in that at that time. But we would, as that group, we would go to a youth group at our church often, and we would go to Christian concerts. And so we saw all sorts of Christian artists: Skillet, Cutlass, KJ52, Toby Mac. Like, we saw so many different art, and it was so cool, right? And I was going to church camps and so emotional in my at a young age. I got baptized when I was 14. And so I was always immersed in that life, right? In the Christian walk. I was around good men and all these things. And then I hit 17, 18 years old. And then I started to branch out into things on my own and hang out with people that I shouldn't have hung out with. Got in with a girl that I shouldn't have got involved with. And next thing I know, it was a slow fade away from my walk with Christ. And I would say from 17 to probably 25 years old, it was pretty dark. And when I left for the Army, I was definitely by myself and not around men that I needed to be around, or people that I was around or needed to be around. And so I fell into some pretty bad stuff. And I won't go into too much detail with that, but fell into some pretty bad stuff. And then next thing I know, and when I was in Hawaii, because that's where I was stationed for a few years in the Army, and every now and then I'd try to go to church, and because I'd feel guilty for what I did the past couple of weeks, so I guess I'll go to church and try to feel better about myself. And I would be in church on Sunday sometimes, and then next thing you know, the next weekend we'd be at it partying again, doing stuff we weren't supposed to be doing. And it deteriorated my spirit for quite a while. And actually, so 2020 was a big turn for me. And I know 2020 was a big turning point for a lot of people. It either made or break a lot of people. A lot of ministries that we follow on Instagram were actually started because of COVID. And mine being one of them. And
Yep.
what happened was, all that stuff happened, right? We were told to stay home until further notice, especially because I was in recruiting at that time, recruiting for the Army National Guard. And they told us, stay home until further notice, probably 2 weeks at the most. Next thing you know, 6 to 8 months later, even to a year, we were dealing with it. But what was also happening at that time was there was a lot of conspiracy theories about the government trying to do some crazy stuff to us. And,
Yeah.
I kind of fell into that rabbit hole online. And next thing you know, I found Order of Man with Ryan Mickler. And then I immersed myself in his podcast and listened to him. And I was like, you know what? I need to start doing stuff. I need to start working out, buying ammo, training with weapons, doing all these things to prepare for something in case, something pops off here in the United States. And of course that's starting to happen again now. But
Yeah.
so, I immersed myself in this world. I found Pursuit of Manliness with Jarrett Samuels, and I found all these different podcasts, right? All these men. And so I started to do these things and try to better myself, and actually ended up getting closer to the Lord with that. And even now I'm still dealing with the repercussions of the life that I had lived before. There's a lot of things that I don't do now that I did before, like drinking alcohol. Me and my wife, we don't even drink alcohol at all anymore.
Yeah.
Which was a big thing for me. I think I was probably borderline alcoholic, and I just didn't see it that way. But we got away from that stuff, and I'm still trying to work on myself and my relationship with the Lord. It's definitely way better now than it used to be, even just 4 or 5 years ago. So, but anyways, and actually in 2020, I started Of Sound Mind. It actually was called, I named it something else. I think it was Sovereign Brotherhood is what it was. And what I planned to do with that was jump on the whole masculinity train, right? And I wanted to have my own page because I had a decent ability to make cool photos. And so
I'd say you have more than a decent ability, or maybe then it was just a decent ability. If anyone here, I'm gonna get on screen real quick. If anyone does not know, Cody is pretty talented when it comes to graphic design and stuff like that. So he's definitely being modest here. But I'll let you continue.
No, I appreciate that. And it's definitely gotten better over the years, I will say. There's things I wish I had access to that would make it 10 times better, like Photoshop, but I don't want to I can't justify spending the, what is it, $80, $100 to have the whole package and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I just use what I have, which is Canva, and it does pretty well for me. I can make some pretty cool looking stuff with that. But but I jumped on that masculinity train, and not to diminish it, but I wanted to be a part of that and post stuff and get people to jump on my page and enjoy that. So, but what it did for me was, and I didn't realize it until, recently, maybe the past year, it gave me the opportunity to meet certain people who then encouraged me and kind of sharpened me in ways that I didn't necessarily know that I needed. I met Donovan, and I met you, and I met all these guys, that over time have obviously encouraged me, but what's the word I'm looking for? Challenged me. Yeah. Challenged me, and not even trying to challenge me, just based on the things that you guys would talk about. It definitely challenged me to learn more, to look at different things, or look at things differently in my walk with the Lord, and a lot of knowledge that I needed. But my focus now, I feel like with Of Sound Mind is to provide real content, right? So the way
Right.
I always describe Of Sound Mind is it's like a journal in real time that I'm writing, a personal journal, and it's things that I'm learning and things that I'm experiencing, and so I maybe I see a verse that really resonates with things that I'm going through at the moment, and I'll make a post about it, and I'll post it. And I've had so many people reach out to me, and not to toot my own horn, but just it's encouraging when other men message me and are like, hey man, that post today, man, that really hit hard. It really hit home. It really encouraged me. It really gave me hope, just things like that. And I don't get a lot of those, but it's so important to me when even when a few guys reach out and say stuff like that. It helps me with, because I went through certain seasons with this whole page of discouragement, and I'm not certain if I'm actually making a difference. I feel like I'm just kind of like a lot of the similar pages, because there's thousands of pages like mine that just make photos with Bible verses and quotes from R.C. Sproul, and and so
Yeah.
I'm another one of those pages, um, but I definitely feel as though the Lord uses it for specific people in certain times, and that's not anything that I'm doing. That's just I'm being obedient, and I'm stewarding it the way I feel as though the Lord wants me to. And so that's kind of where Of Sound Mind is now, and I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to continue to go in the future. And I don't have any super crazy ideas with it yet. I don't have really a lot of resources or funding to do a lot bigger things that I would like to do. But for now, I'm just kind of being obedient and kind of letting the Lord lead it to where He wants. And like I said, up to this point, I've met some pretty awesome dudes, you included. So I think that's going to continue to be the case. And not to mention, too, shout out to Men's Alliance. I also met them through the page as well. And now I'm a tribe leader for a tribe in Ohio. And what we do there is we just do a 30-minute workout and then a 30-minute devotion around the fire. And I've been doing that for a couple months now. And I've seen some tremendous growth in certain dudes that attend. And again, it's not anything that I'm doing. The Lord's working in these guys and working through this group. But just that's a small example of the things that I've been able to come into contact with Of Sound Mind. So it's very encouraging, super cool.
Yeah, no, and you and I have talked. We've talked a lot. Even in, in the last, I was talking to my wife. I think in the last, it was maybe 6-7 months ago, when we actually first like met each other virtually.
Yeah.
But like you've definitely grown to be one of the people I would say I'm the closest with. We have a lot of similar interests and stuff like that, but also I've seen your willingness to call stuff out and not care, and not just like, this is something else too. I think um there's a lot of people in the church that don't have an issue calling stuff out in others. But what I've seen that's different with you is, yes, you don't have that issue calling something out with somebody else, but when you're doing it, you're speaking to yourself too. And so there's been multiple times where I've seen you, like, you've posted something on Instagram, and I've known just from our conversation back and forth, like through text, that has to do with something that you just realize, like, oh crap, like I need to stop doing this, or I need to do this differently. And so that's, if anyone is already following Cody on Instagram, or if they're not yet and they go start, know that when he posts the stuff, it's not just him trying to point the finger at others. A lot of times that's stuff that he's found through either going through a situation on his own or something like that. And it's more of a realization, like, hey, I was not doing this right, or I need to do this differently, or I shouldn't be doing this at all. I want to make others aware, so maybe they can see this in their own lives and help that way as well. And so that's definitely that's something Christians need to be a lot better at, is kind of that being self-aware. And being self-aware is good, but it doesn't amount to a hill of beans if you're not willing to actually make the change and do things like that in your own life. So yeah, no, that's something definitely I've noticed, and it's a very, I think, underrated trait, and you do very, very well with it. So
Yeah.
no, we've done, I know we've talked a little bit This is the first time you've been on Basically Biblical, but we talked a little while back, and I do see Basically Biblical and Of Sound Mind are going to be, I think, very intertwined going forward. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I know we've talked offline a lot about a lot of different ideas we have and things like that.